Okay, that video got very long because I had a lot of things to say, and I think I need to say it. This is my therapy. Talking on camera is saying, is it? This is my therapy because, and it's free. I don't have to pay £300 an hour or whatever the cost is. But yeah, Neanderthals were all mad people, but the difference was is that they were the best in the world. And when you're surrounded by mad people, but you know that they're the best in the world, or we didn't really know what the world looked like because we hadn't really explored it, but we this was the best there was, and there was a lot of explorers, and we did come across, I think we came across people that had travelled and done stuff, and I don't think we really communicated, to be honest. I don't know, it was a very small world, but we believed that this was, everything we did was an achievement, everything we did was, you know was something that improvement, involvement, evolvingness, and stuff like that. And yeah, I think though now we're in a completely different circumstance because now we do know what all everything that goes around the world. There's so much technology, and there's a lot of people that I absolutely hate, but they've achieved a lot and they've done a lot. There's some really impressive buildings. I have no idea how you've got to do them, how you've built them, and even though you might have absolutely no ability to believe that I'm God, if you've done a lot, you've earned your place here, and you've achieved a right to live here, and I think also you've done something, and because you've done something, you want to stay here, you want to make the most of your achievement and stuff. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people in society that haven't done anything. And, if there's huge areas of the world that are dry and full of without water, I do strongly feel like my higher self in the Matrix knows how many people the spirit can cope with and has deliberately made these areas dry and dusty and deserty to try and reduce the number of people that there are. But the problem is the people who are in poverty are the ones that are stupid, and they seem to think they have wrong ideologies, wrong beliefs. They say things that don't make sense. Having 10 kids that are alive is more important than having one kid that's happy and you can afford to look after, and then trying to, I don't know, I mean, I'm really hoping that this whole promotion of not having abortions and stuff like this. I mean, this is a terrible, terrible thing that people are doing. People genuinely believe that by saying that you're murdering a baby, well, you don't have the right to murder a baby. That baby has a right to live, and you can't murder that baby. And just to say this, and just to have absolutely no ability to realize that actually you could just be the reason why there's so many problems here, because too many people are being born. People can't afford to look after their kids. People can't afford to give them a good life. In the past it was different. The Neanderthals had absolutely nothing, and they had to birth people. They had to birth kids into poverty because there was no such thing as wealth back then. And to be mad doesn't, and to be mad is a really bad thing, but over time you learn not to be mad because you die and you come back, and you die and you come back, and sometimes brain problems can happen. Like I don't know what's happened with my uncle, and it might be, I think it's a brain impairment or something, like something the drugs that he's been taking have made him not see clearly, not see logic, and I don't think it's curable, basically. But to most people, they preach the idea of being alive is more important than being sane, and if the only way to become sane is to get a new body, then I really support that. And if you are having a child, if you're pregnant and you are going to have a child, but you don't have a job, you don't have money, the person that you thought you liked has gone off and doesn't want anything to do with you, if you know that you're not going to give this kid a good life, then stop breeding the box for a kid that's going to have a horrible life and maybe just end up in foster care. And well, I don't know, there was a story about some woman being having an accident, being on a ventilator, and the hospital forcibly keeping that person alive just so that this baby can be born to a motherless parent, because the mother's dead, basically the mother's brain dead. as soon as you take her off life support, she's dead, and she's got another few months left to live, and they're going to keep the baby alive just because a baby that's alive is more important than a baby that has a good future. Just this whole nonsense is just stupid, and you know, I had this. I don't even know if this is true or not, but I believe that in the past, you know, if you had a manor and you had a house and you had 3, 5 or 8 scullery maids or something, your scullery maids were not allowed to date boys or date guys, because if they did, they would end up having kids, and you know that you can't house their kids, unless of course you do know. Sometimes the maids did have kids because they wanted more maids basically, and if the maids have kids, well then you've got more maids. But technically those kids probably had like a small childhood and then became like started working earlier on. So I think, you know, but there was a time where people realized that if you're a person in poverty and you get pregnant, you're going to have more people in poverty because you can't offer them a good life. And I think it's not just that. Like mental illness, a lot of people think that it's to do with the brain and stuff, and it is. But it's also wrong upbringing, wrong teachings, wrong stuff. You know, if you are born to someone who's mentally ill, okay, you might not be mentally ill. In your past life, you might have not been mentally ill. But just having the upbringing of being constantly around someone who drives you insane. My mum has been driving me mad my whole life. She frustrates me, she winds me up, and how I've ended up not completely insane is I don't know how I've done it. Like I know people would probably say that I'm not completely insane because of her, because of what I'm saying and me believing them gone and stuff. But mentally ill people have an effect on their kids. And so to think that these mentally ill people should definitely have kids, I mean, if they can look after them, if they can give them a good life, great. But if they can't, then I really advocate this intelligence to say, let's stop them from having kids. If you're 12, you cannot offer a good life to your to kids unless you've got a grandparent who's going to or a mum who's going to take on the responsibility. And so the idea that it's fine to marry young people, maybe they're going to die soon, whatever. Well, yeah, but what happens if they have a kid before they die? Then you're just birthing more and more kids into poverty. And I just think the world is being controlled by stupid idiots. And because the world is being controlled by stupid idiots, it's getting worse and worse. Like the past was awful. But I do think that they had the manors were run by smart people who made orders saying that their servants and scullery maids are not allowed to see boys because, you know, they might end up getting pregnant and we can't house these kids. And okay, there might have been a point where people started getting greedy and they started realizing, hey, let's let them have kids, so that way we, you know, yes, okay, it means that they have to take a year or 2 off, but afterwards then we get a free scullery maid and we make the children work. So I feel like there was a shift. There's a shift coming in. One where it was like, let's do the right thing. Let's stop kids from being born into poverty. And then there was a shift that happened where people realised that you could actually make money off people in poverty. And this is where this sort of rise of this sort of evil grows, greed and just pretending to help people when really you're just birthing more kids in. And this need that it's more important to be alive than it is to be happy or to have a good life, to have a good upbringing, you know. It's horrible just to think that there are things going on in the world where mass people are, you know, mass murder, mass graves, mass everything. But it's also horrible to think that a lot of these people just breed and just constantly and never use condoms, never consider the suffering that their children are going to go through. And I just feel like this is such a mindless attitude. You know, if you've got 3 kids or 5 kids, 9 kids, and you're in wartime and you're still not using contraceptions when having sex and stuff, you're just stupid. You're stupid and you're not caring about your kids. You think having more is more important than caring about the ones that you've got. And it's this, they're robots. A robot is something that just has no actual emotion, no actual connection. And I feel like a lot of people have emotion and have connection, and you can look at someone and you think, oh, I'd hate to be in that situation. I'd hate to, this is a real person. A real person can look at someone's situation and think, I would hate for that to be me. Would you hate to have a mad uncle that talks and okay, maybe not everything he says is completely insane. I'm sure there's plenty of doctors that can have a conversation with him and think, yeah, he's talking sense and stuff, but I just see it as like, this is irrelevant. I'm not really interested. You know, some things he says are okay, and some things I'm just like, what, and there's just a constant eating, not being able to control eating and stuff. I mean, just there's just a lot of this it's just madness. And you could say, if I was in the position, if I was mentally ill, I'd want to be helped. But there's just such a bigger scale. This is such a the people around are affected because they get a horrible view on life, and they start getting twisted and starting thinking that it's more important to be alive than to be healthy, and the Neanderthals were all mad, and okay, there's a lot of murder, and they probably killed each other, and they probably died, but they came back, and they got smarter and stuff, and death is part of the process. And I think there's too many people here, and I don't know though, because I don't know how long the timeline is for. I don't know, like, if the timeline is going to be hugely long, then it's likely that all the mad people are going to come back in a couple of thousand years time, and maybe that's what that I 23,000 years is a very long time, and I've come back, and the whole world has changed, and in another 20, I don't know how long the world has got left. But yeah, I'm kind of tired now. But there's a lot that I wanted to say, and there was more that I wanted to say about Josh, but I've kind of forgotten. I don't know, the visions that I was getting. I was getting quite a lot of visions when I was going through that song where it was raining in her house. Josh Stone had a song where it was raining, and I started seeing piggyback rides and getting on with him, and having a strong connection. He had a sort of lightish hair, browny blondie hair, and yeah, cooking. The cooking, wrapping it up in leaves that looked quite thick, maybe bamboo, or it might have been thicker, I don't know. Just wrap him up, and then you put all the tar, the fire, the ash from the fire that's still hot, and then you kind of cook it on that, and I don't know. I was getting lots of visions, and the thing is, though, comparing the two, they were all mad, but at the same time, that was the best the world had, and now in this age, there are so many advanced people, but I have no idea who they are, and who are building all these buildings. Is it all done by robots? I don't know. I think it would be nice to know the difference between a robot and a human, and see if there's like some sort of test that you can do, but don't tell what the actual purpose is. Find out who can believe certain things. Have a whole list of things. Do you think this? Do you think this? Do you think it's do you think if a child is in complete poverty and their parents can't afford to look after them, do you think it's right that they should be forced into marriage, and yes or no, and who believes what? Because I think there's a lot of there could be a lot of mass murder going on in the country, and people can feel so sorry and so awful about it. But I think if you actually did tests where you said, do you think it's okay to marry children? Do you think it's okay to beat a wife if she shows her skin? Do you think it's, would you rather expose your skin or expose your hair, or would you rather be killed? And to be honest, I would rather be killed than have to wear one of those black veils. I watched something actually about a woman being in a black veil, and just feeling so trapped, so isolated, so imprisoned in this veil, and just feeling like everyone around just doesn't care, doesn't like you, and they're just keeping you in a trap. But I was kind of thinking about that, how it would feel to be someone who doesn't want to wear a veil but forced to wear a veil. Oh my God, I was bringing up so much anger. If you're forced into wearing some black veil all your life because you don't have a dick, and the people around just don't care, and you're feeling just alone, isolated, not allowed to, maybe not even allowed to go near windows because someone, like say if you're wearing half a veil, or face exposed, and you go near a window, and then your partner beats you up for showing your face through a window or something. I mean, the amount of anger one person would feel would be huge. Now I'm just wondering, like, maybe this is the reason why there's so many problems in the Middle East, because there's a lot of people. I don't know how long this has been going on though, because I've seen other videos that said that this wasn't happening 30 years ago. Was this happening? I don't remember ever being this uh, sort of noticeable about these people wearing black. Like, I don't even think I was aware of it when I was a kid. Like, maybe it happened, but I, I, I don't know how many. Like, what's the number? I'd love to know the number. How many is the number of people wearing black veils? Is it increased over the years? Is this just something that people are doing because of anger of, like, if you in your past life were forced to wear just maybe a grey veil or whatever, and you didn't like it, and now you're a male but you're really really angry, you might even want to take your anger out on other people in your society, and maybe this is the reason why the Islamic culture is getting more and more sick, and more hating towards each other, is because you're punishing women and you're making them feel so angry and so cut off and so isolated that when they die and come back as male, they come back far more angrier, and then they want to inflict this anger on others. I don't know. I know I would be hugely angry if I was forced to wear such a dehumanizing costume, but I know that it would bring out so much strength in me. But it would be a strength that would make me want to kill. Kill, kill, kill. They don't care about me. They don't care about me. That I didn't want to wear this. They forced me to do this. And if you're I don't know why women would choose to wear a veil like that. But I just feel like something dark is in it. There was also a protest when I went to Manchester. A group of people protesting about the minorities, and you need to protect the minorities. They were shouting at the police, protect minorities, and I got such a bad vibe from that group. They were all wearing face like COVID masks, and I don't know what that was about, but sometimes you just get bad energy, and I just feel like if I was forced to wear a black veil, I'd just be getting so much bad energy. And if something really bad happens in the Middle East, I think there's going to be a lot of angry people that would make it happen, and veil wearing is something that does that, even though they can't actually express anything because they're not allowed to do it. When they die and then come back as children, male children, they're going to still have this anger inside of them. If you beat and hurt people and then they die, they're not dead. They're going to come back, and they're going to still feel this anger. They're going to still feel this. I'm going to be angry in my next life. I know that what I've gone through is going to be so traumatic that I'm going to feel this anger in my next life. But if my next life is Lily and it comes back right at the end of the timeline, maybe I start using the anger that I still feel to literally end the timeline, because that's pretty much what I want. And so, I'm wondering if the anger that I'm forming is actually going to help me, maybe not in this life, but in my next life, if I come back right at the end when I'm ready to end this timeline. I'm hoping the world won't be as bad. I'm really hoping the world won't be as bad as then. There's a lot of mad people, and I think you can relate to mad people because everyone was a mad person. I do generally believe that half the population has experienced being a Neanderthal. That's when I got a vision of Trump, but I couldn't work out if it was at the same time as Darla, if it was in the same tribe, and I still don't know. I saw a vision of him looking very, very mad, but that doesn't mean that he was there with Darla. I don't know. I do think a lot of people have been a Neanderthal. and therefore there a lot of people have been mad, and therefore you can smart people can sympathize with mad people, and you think, well, they're just on their journey, and okay, maybe they have to die and come back in their next life. But right now there's so many people, and no one, the people in the middle don't know the difference between intelligence and not intelligence. If I'm saying a bunch of statements to a priest, this is true, I'm Israel's a woman, and Israel's supposed to be in sort of in the desert, in the wilderness for 40 years. Well, I'm 38, and I really hope I don't have another 2 years left. But if I say that to a priest, does that think maybe that's true? Maybe this 40 years in the wilderness is actually about a woman that feels isolated and cut off because she's trying to preach something that no one else believes. Is this truth? Or is he literally just thinking, this woman's mad, this woman's mad, this woman's mad? I don't know what's in his thoughts, and I wish I did, and I'd love to do lots of tests where I ask people, where I get a team. Josh Wiener, Josh, I've actually forgotten his surname. Josh Wiener, I've forgotten it. I'm not very good at remembering his surname for some reason. I want to call him Josh Stone. No, yeah, he can. Yeah. I want someone that I trust, and there's not that many people that I trust. Because I just feel like this whole world has just been ignoring me, and I'm just so filled with so much anger. But at the same time, I feel like my memory keeps, like, 1 minute I'm full of anger and I just want to kill everyone, and the next minute I feel like that anger passes, and I almost forget why I feel so angry, and then I can come. There's just changing emotions all the time, and it's hard to deal with. But I want to know. There are so many answers that I want to know, but for me to get the answers, I first need to give a little speech, say what I believe, and then I want to ask them the questions. Why don't you believe that this is real? And I need someone to help me do this properly. I need a group of people to help me do this properly, and I would love to have my own city with my own flag and my own country. I know if I lived in America and I'm saying lots of stuff, people might start reflecting what I'm saying on America. So maybe it is good that I have my own little country, one that's not attacked. Well, it's in America. I want it to be in America because I feel it's safe in America. I'm actually no longer feeling safe in England. Yesterday, there was 2 days ago, that I was sitting and eating a sandwich in the middle of the. I don't want to eat in front of my uncle because I feel like every time I eat, he just wants to eat, and anyway. I was sitting in front of all these, just everyone. There was like 500 people. Everyone looked like they were immigrants. Not very few. I don't know how many people were speaking English, but there was a lot of foreigners. They were all male. A lot of them looked like perhaps builders. But if it's a good builder, if it's a talented builder, if it's a smart, Polish builders are supposed to be really good. And if it's someone who does well and looks after the place, there's a certain type of people that I like, and it's got absolutely nothing to do with race. It's got to do with skill, looking after gardens, looking after, seeing things as being nice, and wanting things to look nice, wanting to look good. Looking good is really important. And there's a lot of people who cover themselves and they just look awful. They look awful. I look at them and I just think, you look awful. Can't you get your health sorted? Get yourself looking good. I know sometimes you can't make yourself look pretty because you might have features that you just can't change or whatever. But sometimes people have like an oversized nose and they can't afford surgery. I'm not talking about things like this. Just look good, and my view of what looks good is just different to so many other people. I just feel so cut off from the world, and to have such a unimpressive family that you just wish you didn't have, and then you just feel so cut off and isolated. And then I'm thinking about women in veils, and they feel cut off and isolated, and it's like they're feeling what I'm feeling. But if they're feeling what I'm feeling, then they just must be feeling anger. And if that's what the veil is to do, to just make them feel angry, then they're not going to care if lots and lots of people die, because they're just going to be feeling the anger that they felt and it's just something sick, it's something sick is rising. And I think that the dumb ones are just the ones that are like, just live, just have babies, just have as many as possible. If you fall into a coma and you're pregnant, we need to save that life, because that life is more important. Even though that life is going to... Adoption isn't bad, adoption can work out, but are these people adopting, are they just adopting because they want to give a child a better life, or are they adopting because they generally want a child? There's a difference. If you're adopting a child because you want to do good, technically you're just adopting the government's burden. They've forced children into being burdens on other people, and you've adopted a child to do good, but really you've just adopted the government's burden. And did you really want that? Or if you get pregnant and if you can't get pregnant and adopt, and then you realise that you can get pregnant, and then you've ended up with more kids that you want because it just takes a bit longer than you thought, and it's just there's so much wrong ideology that's just this world is a mess, and I want to start again. I just wipe out, start again. Value intelligence, value skills, value people that do stuff, achieve stuff, have feeling, can relate to other people, and also can see the truth. It's horrible to be a child in poverty, but if that child in poverty is a guy that's just days away or months away from just getting someone else pregnant, and not caring that they've just got more just brought more people into poverty. If they don't care about their children that they're bringing into poverty, why should I care if they die? You're just going to cause more suffering if you don't die.